Who are the Cardinals going to pursue? We don't know. Who's going to want that job? We don't know. I will say this, though. Saturday, when the news came out that Sean Payton and the Broncos have mutual interest and the Broncos are going to interview him, made a phone call or two and was told that the Saints fully expect to hear from the Cardinals. And that was when we were not quite sure what Michael Bidwell was going to do. At least publicly, we weren't sure what he was going to do. The Saints, as of Saturday night, had an anticipation they were going to hear from the Cardinals about talking to Sean Payton.
Makes sense.
So that gets interesting. That gets interesting, and that's the guy.
That's the guy that we're talking about.
Take Kyler Murray,
right?
That and you know, because he's the guy who will take supremely talented athlete and craft an offense 1 week at a time, one game at a time. Whatever plays, he'll have the playbook available, but he'll pick based upon what he will expect to be facing defensively, the plays that will work. And he'll come up with new ones. The day of the game, walk through in the ballroom at the hotel, he'll come up with a new play and install it then. That's why you got to have the commitment. You got to keep up with Sean Payton. If Kyler Murray doesn't make the commitment, he's never going to keep up with Sean Payton. But it'll be very interesting if they get into that mix. And, Chris, your buddy Jim Harbaugh, it fascinates me just that he would be back potentially in the NFC West.
Yeah, seriously.
Facing Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, facing the 49ers twice a year. But it all comes down to how much power and authority Michael Bidwell is willing to hand to his coach/GM. And he said yesterday, ideally hire the GM first, then the coach, but not necessarily. And that gives us a good sense of what that model is going to be. Is it the coach and the GM beneath the coach setting the table? Or is it the GM, you know, the Giants model, the way it was for years, the GM is fully in charge and the coach works for him? Is it equal? That's part of what Bidwell has to figure out. And a lot of it depends upon who he wants and what that person is going to require by way of head coach.
Yeah, well, I think that's a whole nother conversation when you talk about, Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. And, yeah, you're going to have to figure out who they're going to be comfortable with, and that's going to be, a team collaborative type of thing there as well. Because, like you've talked about, you don't want to throw those two guys with just anybody. They're powerful people as far as personalities are concerned. Sean Payton, I would think, is going to want some say in roster moves and stuff like that as well. So those are the things that have to be ironed out. And then, of course, to your point, too, those are two coaches that Michael Bidwell certainly is not going to have a lot of say with. Not that they can't be diplomatic and hear what he has to say, but those are the sheriffs there. They're going to call the shots. But again, I think with somewhat of a young team, a young quarterback, that's where I kind of lean too, as far as that type of guy, a guy that's again, like we've talked about with Denver, that's been there, done that, understands good culture, and to bring that in the right place. Just the last few years, it was fun. But it had a little bit of a feel of the wild, wild west to it. And, the first year we saw plays, great. Second year, oh, great. There was some improvement, but we fell apart towards the end of the year. And then there was that, third year, I got to prove ourselves that we're really worth it. And they made a push, but then they fell apart at the end of the year, and it just never turned back around. And, hopefully they can be a little more consistent as far as a team with their next head coach.
One last point before we move on, too, because the question will come up as Payton is linked to the Broncos. What about the quarterback situation there? Payton, if he gets linked to the Cardinals, what about the quarterback situation there long term? You've got a quarterback with a torn ACL. You don't know when he's going to be back, who's going to take over in the interim. Payton made it clear when he talked about it on Fox on Sunday morning, and this is something I believe Jim Harbaugh also accepts. Ownership and front office are the key. A good coach will work with anything else.
Yeah.
Payton made the point of saying, now it was his opportunity to say, I think Russell Wilson's perfectly fine and I would love to coach him. He didn't. He said, hey, when we went to New Orleans, we didn't have a quarterback. They tried to get Tony Romo.
Yeah.
When Sean Payton went to New Orleans in
Right.
2006, before anybody knew who Romo was.
Right.
Payton did because he was with the Cowboys. He tried to get Romo. Parcells told him, go to hell. And he got Drew Brees after the Dolphins passed on him because he had 20-plus studs in his shoulder after injuring it in his final regular season game with the Chargers. And it was kind of like that's all the Saints really could do. And what happened? It became one of the great quarterback-coach combinations of all time. So It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But it's not critical to the destination. Ownership and front office are going to be critical to the destination for Payton and Harbaugh. And, hey, maybe the Rams will be in play. Who knows?
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.